Hey everyone, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. This is going to be one of those videos that I get a lot of shit for, but I don't really mind because it really gets my blood boiling when I see something like this. And I want to make sure that there is also a healthy critique of the topic we're going to be talking about. I don't have really good relationship with the Russian opposition. I think they're weak. I think they are useless in what they're doing, and but there's still a lot of sentiment within the Western society about the Russian opposition. To be clear, this is exactly why I'm doing this. Not because I care what the Russian opposition is or what it does. I could care less for them and their approaches to this current situation and war. My problem is that there are parties in the West that are looking up to them and trying to see in them some kind of allies or how do you say, like parties that they can rely upon and maybe invest their resources or at least investing their hope in them. And sometimes this is obviously comes at a cost that the hope gets invested into the Russian opposition trying to resist Putin's regime rather than, for example, into Ukraine and Ukrainian army, which is I'm completely against because for many, many reasons. But let's get to the point. Let's get to the topic. So the thing that got my blood boiling and what I want to talk about was this presentation by Leonid Volkov. Now, Leonid Volkov is either a head or a member of the Navalny's team for now. I'm not completely sure, but he's a talking head from there. And he made this great posts, like a thread chain on Twitter about how great the Russian opposition is and how good their work is, and that the Russian public is already changing their opinion about the war, and that they are already looking down how to throw down the Putin regime. So I'll link the full text below so you're free to read it through and go through it. Yada, yada, yada. They talk about their political opposition, who their organization, the funny, fluffy stuff. To be honest, none of this matters. What matters for me is they are conducting the polls, which I gotta be fair, I couldn't get the original full preview. Maybe there were other questions. But from what they're showing here, they are drawing a picture which is not, how would you say, it is not accurate. They are misrepresenting the data and they're misrepresenting what that data says. And a lot of people also, like as I see in the Twitter comments and so on, they just read it through and they don't even try to address it critically. It's like, oh, I see highlighted number, therefore whatever this person is saying probably is correct because he's against Putin, apparently. So in that sense, I would like to take his arguments that he's saying and compare it to the numbers and what the numbers are actually saying. So what he's saying is that, yes, you see that there is like, it went from being people that were thinking that it's going successful 23% in October is now in November going to 14, and there's people that are saying that it's going unsuccessfully. Well, important thing to understand here, and they also acknowledge this, but they're also making this whole argument that's like, oh, but it's like Putin, like they're stopping believing the Putin's propaganda, and therefore they are also they're also taking a thought into that the operation is not going well, so maybe we should reconsider. No, a lot of this is also coming down to, and I would say majority is coming down to something like a Girkin's opinion, where people are saying, well, we are having a really bad military operation because the command is doing it wrong. They're not even blaming Putin for long times. They're just blaming the command. So, and a lot of these reasons that they're putting is saying, okay, this is the military operation. But the problem is that this is obviously due to the fact that Ukraine is continuously winning. This is not something that the Russians changed in themselves. They're just factually losing. Now, let's go to the second part of this overview. And the second one is, does your acquaintances have relatives who have been mobilized? Yes. So they highlight, yes, I do. And he wants to show that 2/3 of the population that know people that have been mobilized, which is fine, but it was a big mobilization and it was like all over TV network. And I'm pretty sure people heard a lot about this. But what is the important is we see it's only 6% that know of that people who were mobilized also died. Important to know here, it has no stance on the fact how Russians feel. The fact that they know that people got mobilized and the fact that they know that the people got killed that got mobilized, and it's only 6%, only 6%, it's like less than 1 in 10. It's more like towards 1 in 20. It says nothing at all about do they support special military operation, do they not support special military operation. It just states, yes, I know someone who died. Maybe some of them thinks it was bad, some of them thinks that it was good, but it's still far away. An important follow-up to to understanding why this matters is because here, if you can see, he's drawing the line that this is because people are losing support of Putin. Like they are knowing that people have died. There is 6% that know that people have died in mobilization, and therefore this is what leads to people losing faith in Putin. It doesn't. It doesn't. This is a pure speculation. There is no data been shown that would represent that position. Okay, let's go forward. He goes into how would you evaluate the current state of the Russian army? And let's look at the numbers again. So about 1 in 5 people thinks that Russian army is the pristine army, and about 34% thinks that the army is okay. So more than half of Russian population thinks that the Russian army is great. And what does he show here? No, he highlights it's below average. Troops require more combat training. But even in that statement, the statement is done in so that there can be a lot of thought going into saying, oh, I know there are issues in the Russian army, but they just need to be solved, right? And from going to the point that's like, oh my God, Russian army is falling apart. It can be quite a broad spectrum of answers in that statement that they're used. So 28% here is not representatives of what the narrative our friend here, Leonid Volkov, is trying to draw. So if we say that, okay, let's give it 28%, still, majority of the people are either not sure how the army is doing or they are saying Russian army is doing fine. Right? And this is more telling. If people think that the Russian military has the equipment and tools necessary to do the job, and more than half of them are thinking that, that means only one thing, that they are, yeah, they're doing fine. They're doing their job. It's good. They have the equipment. So it completely doesn't follow. Like he's writing here, who wants to join the army which is losing the war? It's like, but they're thinking that the Russian army is fine. Are you not looking at your own data? And then the most kind of like the tipping point for me. What approach should be taken to resolve the conflict in Ukraine? And there is so much wrong with this question. It's like it's the basics of social studies, like on how to do the how do you say, the respondents, because it's an obvious question. What this question asks is essentially, are you for global peace? Like it's like the same kind of question. There is a definitive good answer in this statement that is accepted by humanity, which is all peaceful things are good or wars are bad. That is like one of the things that's been dominant. And within that paradigm, we see that 58% people are saying, yes, I would prefer this conflict to be solved peacefully through negotiations. And in that statement, it can be everything. Like from Ukraine needs to go to the negotiating table and surrender right now, and up to the point that Putin should beg on his knees for this war to end right now and stop the war right now. So there is a huge variety of positions here, and 58% represents none of it. More importantly, in such a loaded question, 30% are saying, no, we need to destroy Ukraine. Like, imagine someone coming up on the streets and saying, are you for global peace? And 30%, every like third one almost, would say to you, no, I want this world destroyed. This is the level of like anger in the Russian society, because even in such a broad question where you can literally answer just one thing and it can mean everything, there is 30% that are saying, no, we're not doing enough to destroy Ukraine. And this is where this Leonid Volkov guy is literally losing me at this point, because I cannot get over the fact that he's manipulating very poorly constructed survey results to present it in a sense that the Russian society is already changing and there is not an overarching support. Whereas his own data, when you just read it, tells you exactly that what's happening, that in a sense that Russian society, every third person wants Ukraine destroyed, and there is a lot of people that are still thinking that Ukraine needs just to surrender or whatever. And this is important. Why? Because as I said, in the West, we tend to look at the Russian opposition a lot. And my critique against the Russian opposition has been going on for a while, because they are a political organization. Let's take an example. Everyone has their job. So let's take, for example, Vlad Vexler. Vlad Vexler is a philosopher. He's doing also a YouTube channel. Does he do his job as a philosopher during this war? Yes. He is doing the thought-provoking discussions on the topics of the Russian mentality and how should people react and treat certain situations. And it is all nice. And that's why I love him. And you should go watch his channel and subscribe to his channel. I disagree with Vlad Vexler a lot on many, many topics, because he is an academic and philosopher, and even some of the positions I disagree on. But the fact that he's doing and what he is doing great. But then people also look at me and then say like, wow, Georgie, you're for Ukraine. So here are some Russian oppositions. Here is like this Volkov, Navalny's team, Katz is super popular. And like, they're YouTubers. Yes, they're doing YouTube videos. Yes, but they're also political figures. And political figure in Russia is doing their job. My problem with the political figures in Russia and politics in Russia has been for so long that they just don't want to realize that whatever they have been doing for over 20 years has been completely useless. The politics is when you can get people in your country to do certain kind of actions to achieve a certain desirable results. And when we start looking as an evaluation parameter, not what they've been doing, it's like the best example I can say in my corporate career, it's like a process improvement. If you improve the process, you did 100 workshops about the process improvements, and there's like all people participate, and there have been courses and everyone involved, like a lot of activity. But the result is still shit. That means that whatever was done was just actions. It did not achieve results. So when we're talking about the Russian opposition, we need to look at whatever results they are stating are either twisted and beyond belief, they are achieved by some other parties, or they're not doing enough. The only position of a Russian oppositionist right now is to explain to the Russian society how to fight Putin's regime. The war is happening already for 9 months. They should have been calling essentially for Russian to radicalize, to do partisan activity, to fight the police state that the Putin's regime is, to fight essentially for the rights of Russia, to fight for it like civil war. Literally, this is what is required. And the only thing against that, I sort of like, it's just not the time. The messaging on the, for example, the political party, the Popular Politics channel that are running is basically, we are totally supporting Ukraine for what it does. And as for Russian society, you shouldn't feel too bad because this is Putin's war. We just need to wait until and hope and hold to each other very, very tightly until this war is over, and then the victory will just fall into our laps. I'm sorry, but that is not a politics activity. If we're talking about like a YouTube personality like me, Jake Bro, or like Perun and so on, like we are YouTubers, we're doing this information campaign. We're not claiming to be political leaders. But if you take someone with a real job, like for example, Operator Starsky, he's like a YouTube personality, yes, but he's also a National Guard serviceman. So when the war came to his home, he was actually fighting on the front lines. And we need to understand that during this situation, it's already time for these politicians, like all the Katzes, all the popular politics and whatsoever, to literally do the actual job, to fight on the front lines for what they believe in. They are still sitting in their studios and trying to explain something to the Russians and doing exactly the same message that they've been doing for over 20 years that achieved jack shit. So that's why I think if they want to be treated as politicians and not a YouTube personalities, then they need to actually do something. And that's why I think when Western media says, hey, look at this Russian politician, and he's saying all of these nice stuff. The problem for me is like right now, Russian politician is the person that is leading people in resistance against Putin regime. If it's just a YouTube channel, then it's a YouTube personality, and that is not a politician. Thank you so much for listening to me on this rant. I just needed to get it out. I still love you guys. I'm pretty sure like in comments it's going to be a hellstorm shitting on me, but I hope it was still worth it. And next video is coming tomorrow. So thanks a lot and see you next time.